The drama department at Royal High School is still going strong after 50 years, and I'm proud to say that I was there for its very first stage production. I was still wet behind the ears, and I hadn't yet figured out that a theatrical performance was more than just mugging for a laugh. I'm thankful that we had such a good teacher. Jennifer Short had what one of my classmates called a Broadway sensibility. She knew how to put together a stage play we could be proud of. Walking into Jennifer Short's drama class that first afternoon, I was pleased to see a few faces that I recognized. I knew Barry Langston would be there, as he had been telling me for weeks that he had intended to take the class. I also recognized two or three students who had appeared with Barry that summer in Rumpelstiltskin. The others in the class were new to me. As we stood in a circle to introduce ourselves, each class member said a little about their experience in drama, recounting any roles they had played. I did my best to remember all the names: Peg Breather, Frank Blake, Janine Bowe, about 24 in all, a few of whom had worked with Mrs. Short before. A look at a textbook or a course outline will usually provide an idea of what's in store. This class was different. There was no book or printed lesson plan. Mrs. Short devoted the entire first week to improvisations. No script, no memorized lines, just a suggestion of character and situation in which class members had to make up the action and dialogue on the fly. Several platforms had been set up to create a makeshift stage at the front of the classroom. Two girls I did not know volunteered to go first, and Mrs. Short gave them the setup. Two friends, on skateboards, find a lost dog in the park. She gave them a few seconds to imagine a storyline and then said, "Go." That was the wonderful thing about drama class. We were perhaps the last generation who understood how to entertain ourselves with our imagination. Here was a class that seemed to elevate make-believe to an academic subject, making it a legitimate part of the high school curriculum. These improvisations gave those of us watching from our desks a chance to see our fellow actors in action. In addition to serving as icebreakers, these warm-up exercises also provided Mrs. Short with a quick way of assessing each student's physical type, voice quality, and overall stage presence. A look at the basic talent from which she would cast her first play at the new school. About 5 minutes before the final bell, Mrs. Short quieted the class and stepped to the front of the room to make a few announcements. Next week we will have tryouts for our first production, The Miracle Worker by William Gibson, she said. There are 13 roles. I hope that all of you will audition. Even if you're not interested in being cast, you should plan on attending the tryouts. Knowing how to do a cold reading is an important part of being an actor, and you should practice whenever you can. Even if you are not cast, people are needed for stage crews, lights, sound, props, set construction. She pointed to a stack of scripts on her desk at the back of the room and invited us to sign out copies so we could read the play. I took home a copy of the script to read that week, and the following Tuesday I stayed after school for the cold readings. My name was listed for callbacks the following day. When the cast list was posted, I was surprised that my part was so small. I was cast as the country doctor, a character appearing in only one scene. Mrs. Short began blocking the play the following week. Cast members turned to the task of learning our parts, and a small crew of student volunteers began building the set under the direction of Mrs. Short's husband. The play was scheduled to run in mid-November, which gave us 6 weeks to prepare. About a week later, I embarrassed myself during rehearsal. By then, Mrs. Short had finished blocking the play and began running individual scenes. When she called places for the start of Act 1, I stepped onto the stage with script in hand. "You're still on book?" Mrs. Short asked. "How many lines do you have?" "I don't know," I said sheepishly. I hadn't counted them. But I knew that my scene was short. I tucked the script into my waistband and paraphrased my lines. I silently vowed to myself that I would memorize my part at home that night. After my scene, I took a seat in the cafetorium. As I watched the rehearsal, I noticed some cast members carried their scripts, but Barry already appeared to have his lines memorized. Barry had been cast as the Greek surgeon who had restored Annie Sullivan's eyesight and who arranged for her to become Helen Keller's teacher. Robin had been cast as Aunt Ev, and she seemed already to know her part in the play too. Once in a while, as she moved across the stage, she would pause for a moment and say, "Line." Assistant Director Debbie Sumner would consult the open script on the table, prompting Robin with the first word or two from her next line. Robin was a pleasure to watch on stage. Her coarse, jet black hair framed a face that could convey any emotion instantly: curiosity, exaggerated surprise, intense anger. Her expressiveness was not limited to the stage, and even in casual conversation, Robin's face seemed to broadcast what she was thinking and feeling. I especially loved watching her when she joked. She often made me laugh. Robin was intense, outspoken, and for a high school student, she knew a lot about theater. I don't know whether she thought I was a talented newcomer or maybe she just enjoyed my jokes, but she took a liking to me. She treated me as an equal, and this put me at ease. How fortunate I was that Robin took me under her wing. She became something of a mentor for me as we grappled with the task of bringing Helen Keller's story to life on the stage. Only 9 years earlier, child actress Patty Duke had portrayed Keller, co-starring with Anne Bancroft in the play's Broadway debut. Both actresses reprised their roles in the 1962 movie version. I had never heard of the play and had not seen the movie. I recognized the name Helen Keller, but I knew next to nothing about deafness or the sign language alphabet utilized in the play. Fingerspelling, of course, was just the sort of thing teenagers like to learn, and my fellow cast members and I were soon silently spelling to one another in other contexts, such as during history lectures. Having such a small part in the play was a bit of a disappointment for me, but it provided me the opportunity to observe other scenes in great detail. I had a lot of time to watch more experienced actors at their craft. On opening night, Robin tried to help me with my stage makeup. Of course, the girls in the cast already knew how to apply makeup, but several of the other boys stood around with me waiting for help. Mrs. Short and Mary Lee Hicks stood at the tables, applying makeup to our faces. "Ronnie, you could do this yourself," Robin said, turning from the mirror. "I don't know how," I told her, shrugging my shoulders. "Just watch me," Robin said, as she wetted a small sponge and dabbed it into the compact. "Just rub it in small streaks across your face, like this." I still felt intimidated by the task, afraid I'd make a mess of it. If all I had needed was the pancake makeup, I might have managed that, but my character was supposed to be old, too. I had no clue how to use a grease pencil to add wrinkles and lines to my face. I could not imagine myself handling a mascara brush. I was grateful to Robin for trying to help, even if I didn't feel ready to try makeup on my own. "Good luck tonight," I called to her as she stepped toward the stage door. "No, no, Ronnie," she said, wagging her finger as she turned to face me. "In theater, it's bad luck to say good luck. You say break a leg." "Break a leg?" I asked. "That's better," Robin said. "You break a leg tonight, too." I hadn't expected to be nervous, but as I walked up the steps and took my place on the stage, I felt a knot in my stomach. I could hear the muffled sounds of people in the audience talking as they waited for the play to begin. I must have looked scared standing there in the half darkness. Robin noticed my expression and put her hand on my shoulder. Relax, she whispered. Just take a couple of deep breaths. I don't remember being scared last summer, I said quietly. Of course, that production had been a children's story, and this was a play for grown-ups. I knew that many parents were in the audience. I took a couple of deep breaths as Lisa Osserman and Tim Nordmark moved onto the stage with me. The three of us took our positions around the cradle. Simon and Garfunkel's The Sound of Silence played through the overhead speakers, setting the mood for the play as the house lights dimmed. The strip lights came up, casting a bright blue glow onto the wall behind us. The curtain slowly opened, and the music faded out. I held up a thermometer in silhouette, pretending to inspect it as I delivered the first line of the play. She'll live. My time on stage was over almost before it began. 3 minutes later, as I stepped down the backstage stairs and into the drama classroom again, I realized Robin had been right. Taking several breaths did help me calm down. I wanted to thank her, but she was still in the wings backstage, waiting for her first entrance. I took a seat with several other cast members as they waited for their scenes. At the end of the play, I took my place with my fellow cast members for a curtain call. The cafetorium was filled with people clapping. More than 300 in the audience, I later learned. I could see that many of them had been quite moved by the story. They gave us a standing ovation. I felt proud to be part of this, but I realized that most of the credit belonged to the principal cast members and our director. Mrs. Short has a Broadway sensibility, Robin told me the next day before class. What does that mean? I asked. She knows what sells. Robin had been in Mrs. Short's drama class the previous year and knew that our teacher had a reputation for staging outstanding student productions. After seeing the reaction of our opening night audience, I began to sense there was more to all this than make-believe and mugging for a laugh. I had enrolled in the drama class anticipating the fun of appearing in another play, but I hadn't given any serious thought to what acting was all about. The summer workshop had been a great introduction to the stage, and bringing a children's play to performance level in just 3 weeks had been a challenge. The applause had been truly exciting for me and helped my self-confidence. I knew I wanted more of that. Still, my experience in Old King Cole barely hinted at the hard work that live theater entailed. In spite of my early success that summer, I had much to learn about stage work. Through my experience with The Miracle Worker, I began to see that acting was a craft, something that could be learned with proper instruction. By Thanksgiving, the set had been struck, and we turned again to improvisations and short scenes in class. We focused on various aspects of acting: pantomimes 1 week, vocal projection exercises the next. Students typically broke into small groups to practice assigned monologues or group scenes. In time, these would be performed in front of the class and critiqued. The unconditional acceptance of these peers made it easier for me to risk. If I got up in front of the class and did well, they applauded. If I flubbed a line, or if my characterization fell flat, I still felt accepted and valued. If I made a fool of myself, they still applauded and laughed, not at me, but with me. That made a world of difference. Here at last was a place I could let my guard down and just be myself.